Uh, Half the family says Dowen, half the family says Dowen. So it's a choose your own adventure.
Okay, I
Um,
like that.
Whatever you feel like. Change it up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, nice to meet you, Aaron, and
You
thanks
as
for joining
well.
the Eline podcast.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. So I saw your message on Twitter as another podcaster. You said you were looking for other podcasts to join. I was like, of course, we're definitely looking for guests, and I'm a comic book fanatic. I love graphic novels. I actually collect them. I've been collecting for like 15 years now.
Oh,
So
goodness.
I have like a whole library full of graphic novels, more so
That's awesome.
focused on not so comic-y stuff. I went against Marvel to focus on more like, I don't know, surreal life thing,
Mhm.
stuff like that, crime sometimes, just things that are kind of based on life in between. Thought were very interesting. But
Yeah.
Tilt, tell us about Tilt and how this got started. Well, no,
Yes.
before Tilt, tell us about Catalyst Comics and how this came to be. Like, what inspired their idea? You're the main writer, correct? And then you have these
Right.
artists work with you. Okay, go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So the company started, I was closet writing comic book stories. I'd never done it before. I've been writing short stories, poems, music since I was about 13. And then back in 2016, 2017 ish, I was just messing around with comic book scripts. I thought it would be a fun medium to try to figure out and get playful with. It's something to kind of challenge my brain to write cinematically. And then I found out one of my best friends at the time was also closet writing superhero stories, and we were like, man, this would be cool if we could do something with this. So I came up with the idea of Catalyst, and he fell off the face of the map. We even to this day we don't even talk anymore. At the time, we had found an artist. We He was local. We met him through a mutual friend whose name is Lewis Small Jr. So people might know him. He did Vampirella back in like the 90s, and he did some DC and Marvel work as well. Um, he was a big cover artist, and he was local to our scene, and he introduced Matt and I. And Matt was working on our joint book. And then this person disappeared. I didn't know what to do. I was just kind of left holding the bag, and I asked Matt if he would come on as co-owner of Catalyst, and he accepted. And then we started working on Paradigm, which was our first comic book. We went into a very simple goal, very simple mindset of let's do the thing that everybody says you can't do and get a comic book done. And that's exactly what we did. And we kickstarted it. It was a struggle the whole way through. A bunch of the notes, though, that I had left over from Paradigm are what became Tilt. But this was kind of the birth of the company. So really that campaign, that first campaign, I'd like to say that that's when the birth of the company was, because it was struggling. I think we ended up with like 34 backers, and we were dumb and nobody knew us. We didn't have a backing, like a email list. And we just shot into it with like a $4,500 goal, which is a bad idea, and I wouldn't recommend for anybody, especially if you do superhero stuff. But two people came to us about halfway through, and they said, get whatever you can get and we'll fund the rest, because we want to help the company start. And we're thankful for that. I try to bring it up every time I talk about our origin. And that's how it started. It was just generous people, and they jumped in on our first campaign, and we've been able to grow ever since then.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So now let's jump forward to the newest story, the latest story, Tilt. Let's talk about Tilt some.
Yeah, so Tilt was born out of a bunch of extra notes I had for Paradigm, that I thought would have been a cool character. And then I realized it'd be even more fun to put him together as a singular character, which became Patrick, or Tilt. He's a fourth wall breaker. He has a lot of heart, though. His story might have some dark elements, but there's a lot of humor there. I get to play with that whole, talking to the audience thing. And for me as a writer, that's just fun, because it's basically sharing my inner thoughts directly, like conversationally. And then I wrote the first four as a story arc. I wrote them all together. And this was, back in 2017, the first things I wrote. And so we're finally at this point getting to see all of that work come to fruition. A lot of people that get into comic books, they don't realize this stuff takes time. You're going to be finished writing something and just waiting for a long time to see that entire thing kind of come together. But through that process is when we built the team behind Tilt, which was Matt Sotelo, the co-owner of Catalyst, he does the cover work, main cover work. And then Joe DeSantos, he does all the illustrations, and Ramon Amancio is the colorist. And we met through Facebook. That's how all of us linked up, and we started Tilt, and we've been going hard on that ever since, while we trickle in some other books. And this is a big moment for us to finally get this fourth issue out and wrap up a story arc so that we can move forward and really start looking at getting that turned into a trade so that people can pick up the whole thing. But just a quick about the story. It's gritty, fourth wall breaking, humorous. His name is Patrick. He's homeless in Boston when you first meet him. He was taken at 15 and trained as a mercenary, used for a bunch of bad stuff. And then he broke out, and that was about 15 years after he was in, broke out, didn't have any money. So he stays in a warehouse. And when we see him making the decision to be the hero that Boston needs, as well as starting to track down the people that put him in there. And so the course of the story is that, as well as coming in contact with someone from his past who is going to be one of his main villains.
Okay. So are you from Boston?
My entire family is from Massachusetts, except for me. I'm from Florida.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I'm the weirdo. And then I spend most of my time in North Carolina and Pennsylvania, kind of back and forth.
When we have writers, writers have inspiration about loosely about themselves or their past. You seeing the character is in Boston. That's what made me ask that.
Yeah. And that's exactly where that came from, was the my whole family being from Massachusetts, and playing on the Irish background that we have, is where his last name, which is Itil, it translates to flying. It's from Irish. And then Paradigm is based in Charlotte, which is like my home state of North Carolina. That's where I really grew up. I was born in Florida, but grew up in North Carolina. So that was just kind of a nod to that. Yeah, I mean, as writers, we get to make the rules. So.
Yeah. So when, let's say you're in high school, 17 years old, did you know that this was going to be like your destiny? Did you always want to write comics, or did it just kind of happen in life, like years later, or what?
Yeah, writing has been vital to me since I was a kid. Like I said, I'd written short stories in middle school. I wrote some poetry that, thank God nobody can find now, when I was in high school. And if you do find it, I'm going to say I didn't do it. So it's always been a part of me. And then I've been a musician, singer, songwriter since I was about 12 or 13 as well. So writing has always been there. My dad, weird early influence, but my dad had this drawn story, and I never knew he was an illustrator until I saw this. He had come up with this whole race of like insects, and the main one was called Haystack, and it was an adorable little creature. And he had written this story in like 6th grade or something and had to illustrate it. It was a class project that he got an A on, and I still have that. And before I die, I hope that I can actually turn that into like a family kid-friendly book. That's a goal that I have. But so writing was there for him too, and I guess that just carries on into the creative. For me, I knew I was going to write no matter what, and I had been doing blogs. And I went to college and got a master's education, and I taught creative writing. I taught English literature, so I knew that stuff was going to be there. And then realizing that I can do a different format. I still write prose. People can look up my short stories and novellas. There's a novel I've been working on since high school that if I ever actually sit down and finish it, it'd be wonderful. 40,000 words in, so at least halfway. I just need to actually take the time to sit down and finish it. But yeah, I mean, writing's always been there. I knew it was going to be a big part of my life, and luckily now I get to do more and more of it.
Wow. How about the process? I know you mentioned you met your graphic designer through Facebook. Have you ever dabbled into graphic design yourself?
Yeah, I'm a graphic designer. I've been a graphic designer since I was 17. And the reason I say that, I don't know if people will count 17, but we had to do senior projects. And my senior project was to do a 4-song EP with my band. But the flip side of that is I had to do all the album cover work. So I started learning graphic design back then, and I do almost all of our graphic design now except for the actual book work where we have illustrators do covers and the interior. But as far as the logos, the layouts, not just my stuff, but other stuff as well. Even videography, I do all of that.
So do you like, okay, so I see the Pokemon in the background. I love Pokemon. But no, every time I watch like anime or read a comic, I just, especially like anything animation, cartoon or anime wise, I think about how long the process is to kind of like do that in terms of drawing, having it move, this, that, and the third. Like, how would you describe that process, like in your opinion on animation? Like,
well,
I guess comics is a little bit different because it's not really as much as film, but
it's different. But you know, motion comics are really picking up pace, and we have a little bit of one that's up on YouTube now that I really took till issue 1 and started turning it. I got a bunch of friends to send the voiceover clips in from the different characters, and then I started taking the panels out and kind of turning them into kind of fluid motions. But it's a lot of work. My cousin is she graduated from SCAD down in Georgia, and so she is actually going to be a project manager at someplace out of Georgia for animation, and it's fascinating to talk to her about stuff because you know people don't realize how far animation has come, where now you have entire teams dedicated to like the hair of Moana, and just the hair or whatever. But I watch animation all the time because I have a 3-year-old stepdaughter and then a almost 5-year-old daughter. So my life is surrounded by animation constantly. But stuff like this, like Pokemon, that was my childhood. So I still have a very large fondness for that, and like Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff like that.
So would you say Studio Ghibli or Disney?
I don't like Disney as a company.
Might have to take that.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much I can say of that before I get tased or something. No, I don't like their corporate structure, and I don't like their exploitation, I guess, of past stories. And you could take that from almost any of their stories, things like Lion King, which was just a ripoff of something else, and stuff like that. I have an issue with. And then I see what they're doing now, which is just recycling their old content and making it live action. But their thing now is let's grab other pieces of other cultures and kind of turn it into things, which is cool to see that stuff represented. But at the same time, everything seems very cookie cutter now. There's a very normal flow of the movie. I'll say one of the most change up movies that they've done was Encanto. That was not a normal feeling Disney movie. It didn't have the normal pace of a Disney movie. It didn't have like the huge climatic scene or anything. It was kind of just a more lull story, which was fine. I mean, it was a gorgeous movie, good voiceovers and everything, but I feel like a SWAT team's going to come in now. I'm talking about Disney.
Right. You're knocking the door. You're in.
Oh, Disney. No, you can't. They're going to like send like, what's the girl from Tangled or something? She's going to outside for you. She's going to wrap you up with her hair.
I'm okay with that. Rapunzel was my childhood crush, so.
Oh, come through Rapunzel.
I think mine was Sailor Moon.
Oh, yeah? See, I remember a lot of the early Sailor Moon stuff. I really fell out of anime. I was never really into manga. Another big contentious thing I know. But I'm having a real hard time with anime. I've tried many times to get into stuff, and I don't know if I'm just not getting recommended the right stuff. But I try, and then we do a show where we watch stuff, and we'll review it. And we decided to go through Spy X Family, and it's just not clicking with me.
I mean, I think it's very particular types. Like I like Naruto or whatever. I think I said it right the first time. And then I like more so the older school animes, like from the 90s and the 80s, late 80s. They were done very well. The meticulous, art, craft, drawing, the skill you have to have.
Yeah.
How the technology back then was phenomenal. So I would say I'm big on horror too, horror anime, because it's just so out of the box and it's not any traditional story they're pulling from. It's just their own, and like their subconscious mind, which I love. I would say Vampire D. If you haven't watched that one, it's classics, like from the late 80s.
Okay.
I love it. I still watch it like every now and then.
Send me like your top 3.
I definitely will.
And I'll try to check them out and see if I like. I think my thing with Spy X Family was as soon as I see it and I see the characters, they look like the same exact characters from like 20 other ones. Like facial structure, which is gonna inevitably happen with animation. But even more nuanced than that. In fact, there was one character in it that I screenshot. I don't know if you guys know Yu-Gi-Oh well, but I don't remember her name at this point. Valentine? Was her name Valentine? The one that played with the Harpies?
That like the actual like the card, right?
No. Well, her deck was like the Harpy deck or whatever.
Oh, I know. Okay.
There was a character in Spy X Family that I was like, this looks just like her. So I screenshot both and sent them to my lady, and she was just like, that's the same person. I was like, yeah, that's what I've noticed on newer anime is they can crank this stuff out, but it's because of that. It's because of the way that they're doing the art. I have more of a respect for what they're doing in manga than I do in anime currently.
Okay.
Even while I'm not like a massive manga fan, I don't really read it. But as far as the artwork and the, I mean, if you go down too deep down the rabbit hole of what it's like being a manga artist, then you'll get into some dark stuff as well. But they can crank some work out though.
Wow. Aaron, I wanted to talk about your podcast. So you are a podcast host, and can you tell us the name of your podcast?
Yeah, so we do a couple. There's a Beards and Comics podcast. That one has ebbed and flowed a little bit. So it started off with Matt and myself just kind of chronicling our adventures as comic book creators and indie comic artist and writer. And we've had really good interviews. We've made a lot of good friends off of it. And then we started around the 80 episode mark. We realized we're about to start cycling through the same things. That's not our desire. That's not fun for either of us. So we decided to take a hiatus. We took a hiatus for all of 2 weeks before we were like, you know what, we could do something different. So now that show, we kind of pick something, we'll watch it or read it, listen to it, and then we'll talk about it. So we've only done 4 since we've been back, and those were on Multiverse of Madness, Moon Knight. I don't even remember what the other 2. Ron's Gone Wrong, and the Batman movie. So we've done those 4, and we're going to keep going. I think the next one's going to be on like Free Guy, and then we'll probably do like Ready Player One or something. And then our other show is Dementophobia podcast. That one is fun for us because the entire point is we read a random fan fiction story found online, and we just react, have fun, read through it together. So somebody was like, this is like Audible for fan fiction, but also we're just interjecting our stupidity and jokes. Our new goal is to have different people come on, pick any fan fiction story they want, read it to us, and then we'll chop it up and post it weekly.
Oh wow. So do you do that like with the movies as well? So if like a fan like decides to like send you like a movie to watch, would you all check out a movie and review it? Like any movie?
Yeah, for Beards and Comics, if people have something that we think would be a really interesting discussion, like for us, we neither of us liked the Batman movie. But both of us liked the new one. But both of us liked Ron's Gone Wrong, which is an animated movie. So it was funny we try not to discuss it at all before we hit the record button, just to see what each other thinks.
So what's your opinion on like I was talking with a friend about like the Batman movies, and like what if they incorporated like the animation style of like how they dress, the costumes, like and things like that? What's your opinion on that? Like the Joker, imagine like the Joker being all classic with like, of course, the green, not this like a beat up face or anything like that, just a straight up white, clean look, like maybe like kind of like the original Batman, like the series. Like, what's your opinion on that?
So my opinion is, go with me here. What if these comic book companies that make movies took some of their best selling graphic novels and just turned them into live action? And didn't try to do things like they just did with the Batman. I don't want to see a teenage angsty Batman that the first time you see him full face, it's just like streaked makeup and stuff. It's like, okay, this is a weird setup for who Batman is. I've challenged quite a few people, like, what's the most Batman-y thing he did in the movie? Because I feel like they foregoed a lot of who he was. And this is coming from somebody like, the reason I didn't like it is because I love Batman. My favorite superhero is Nightwing, who was trained by Batman.
Yeah.
Nightwing was a massive influence on not just Tilt, but how I write superhero comic books. But that movie, for me, it was just, there's always a problem with DC not being able to find the light switch on their filmography. Everything's real dark, and I understand that they were trying to tell a particular story, which was based a little bit more on Gotham and the mob stuff. But I think the show Gotham did it better. And
I agree
a lot.
You spend more time with those characters. You understand Bruce's mindset more. I feel like in the Batman movie, we didn't really see a strong Bruce Wayne. We saw he was a good detective for the most part. I mean, Alfred, solved some of it for him, but Alfred's character was well done. But as a movie, I was done about an hour in, and I was like, I could shut this off and not bother with the rest and probably be fine. But I stuck it out and watched the whole thing, and I had the same feeling afterwards. I was like, oh, I probably could have just saved myself that last 2 hours and watched something else. Batman was a ninja. And then like we see him in that movie, and every time he fought, it was not ninja-esque at all.
True. This is true. Yeah, I saw it. I was just wondering because like I liked Batman growing up, like in the original series, the animated series, but I don't think I really like read comics as much to like really have too much of an opinion on it. But yeah, I thought it was okay. It was okay. But yeah, I was just wondering about that. But you did mention that Nightwing was like some sort of like inspiration for Tilt. So can you give us like some different inspirations for Tilt?
Yeah, so Nightwing in particular, because Tim Seeley had this run on Nightwing, and he wrote Grayson, which was, for those that haven't been into comics for more than a few years, Grayson was like this weird offshoot comic. I think it was 21 or 22 issues, but it took Dick Grayson out of being a superhero and put him into a spy. He became a spy for a network called Spiral, and it was incredibly well done. Tim Seeley, the way he wrote that character was very playful, but also there was a lot of depth to it. And so we were, blessed to have him on a podcast and be able to talk to him a little bit. And since then, I've emailed him on occasion. I try to email him before he put out Tilt books in particular. But he's the reason that when you read Tilt, you'll see Tilt not in a shirt just for no reason. And it's because he did the same thing with Nightwing. He talks about, he believes in mutual exploitation. There's a lot of comic books that exploit nice looking women. And he was like, then you got somebody like Dick Grayson, who's really like nice looking dude. So he was like, I tried to like sexualize that, beefcake it a little bit. And I thought that would be hilarious for Tilt. And so I told Joe, the artist, that I had that conversation. And Joe was like, so you're telling me anytime I have a chance to take him out of a t-shirt to do it? And I was like, you know what, have fun with it and do it. And so people like, it's humorous to people, but I think it's fun to do the beefcake side of stuff because it's not something you see a whole lot in comics.
I can see that. That's true.
Yeah. So it's playful. I mean, Tilt is a playful character. He was designed to be able to play off of superhero tropes. You see him in 3 different costumes in the first 2 comic books because of the trope of, superheroes changing their costumes too much. And just stuff like that I get to play with and have a little more fun than I do with Paradigm, which is more grounded in real circumstances and post-traumatic stress and stuff like that.
So if you could get anyone to play the lead character in Tilt, who would you get to play them if it was going to be live action?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I think this is really just, oh man. So right after I finish this, I'm doing my first time ever playing Dungeons and Dragons with some other podcast guys. So this must be fresh on my mind, but oh my God, I'm going to butcher his last name. Let me look this up. Hold on. Joe, what is it? Manganello? Mangang? No.
talking about, but
he played Deathstroke.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
So the reason he's fresh in my mind is because he's a huge Dungeons and Dragons nerd. Yeah. He's married to Sofia Vergara.
Oh yes,
yes, that guy.
I can see that.
He's funny. He has that kind of build too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, he's a nice build. He's a gorgeous man. Like, no, yeah. I definitely see it. No, I see it now. Huh.
Just salt and pepper it up a little bit and he'll be good to go.
Yeah.
Like the way he is now.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then people like Exquisite. I would probably have to cast like somebody like, I mean, of course, it would be too cliche to go Idris Elba, but Idris Elba.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. Because he's smooth, and that's Exquisite's whole thing is he tries to play a chess game with everybody, and I just, when I look at Idris Elba, that's what I see is this dude's just smooth.
Yeah. What do you think about Daniel Kaluuya, the main actor in Get
Out? Man, he's actually more of the right age too for
yeah, I don't know. That just hit me. I don't know. It just hit me.
Yeah, he's a good actor too.
There was another one too. I just watched Kate. I'm not about to know his name. I'll just add a picture of him. He reminds me of Daniel Kaluuya. It's an Emergency. It's an Amazon Prime feature film that just came out like a couple weeks ago. Emergency. He's like a tall version of Daniel Kaluuya. That's the one I can think of. He would fit too.
I was talking to me about that recently.
There's another guy that's popping in my head too. I don't know if you guys watched Serenity, the movie that was based off of Firefly.
I haven't.
All right, so Firefly, if you've not watched it.
Definitely watch Firefly, but I have not seen Serenity.
All right, so Firefly, fantastic series, only made it one season. Fans were so mad that they raised a ridiculous amount of money and they were able to get Universal to put a movie out to close that story out, and that's called Serenity. I'm trying to think what the guy's name is, but he was also in that movie 2012.
He was in the movie titled 2012.
Yeah.
Oh.
But he would be another. Oh my gosh, I can't pronounce that name to save my life. I don't know.
Make sure you see people so I can snap them up on the screen.
Yeah, let me spell it, and we'll try to decipher this together. Chiwetel. Chiwetel.
Oh, Chinua. I know you're talking about the kinky boots.
Yes.
Yeah. You know who I'm talking about. He was in 12 Years a Slave.
Yes.
I know you're talking about.
That's how much of a nerd I am, is that I was like, no, from Serenity.
I always have conversations too. So yeah, he's he would be.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm like, okay, I'll use Google. I'm like, can you use the audio and tell me the name?
yeah. But he's another one that I think would be interesting. I don't know. I try not to Dreamcast stuff too much. Because then it's like, you get other people and you're like, yeah, but it's not who I said on that podcast that one time though.
Right. But do you feel like it's on your bucket list to have like a live action like film with one of like your comics, or do you feel like you're fine without a live action and just having your comics live on?
I'm fine without it. I don't write. A lot of people write for that reason now, right, to have it turned into a property. I don't write for that reason, but there are properties that I've written that many people have already said they could see as something. I have pitched a couple of different things, and we'll see how those things pan out later on. But more than the superhero stuff's hard, especially in today's climate. It's hard to get people on indie superheroes because they have their people. For me, it'd be like Nightwing, Spider-Man, Batman. Those are my dudes. Hal Jordan, John Stewart. Like those are the guys that I read. Getting people to get invested on indie stuff is because it's difficult because people don't know that the comic book series is going to continue. And I completely understand that because I'm the same way. I hate grabbing a book, loving it, and then realizing the creator gave up because they didn't make enough money off of their campaign. And I try to go into it understanding of that. But at the same time, like at least we're getting around to finishing this first story, and that's massive for us. And it's massive for the indie comic book community too, to be able to pick up a full story and not feel like you're getting cheated out of the ending. And it's established so that it could go on, of course, because you're a writer and you make comic books, you can't end a book without it having a possibility of going on. For us, though, there are other properties that will probably end up being made into something before any of our superhero stuff, like Welcome to Everville, because of the style that is. It'd be very, it would have the market that it would need to for today's consumership, which is, it's a dark fantasy horror, and it plays off of alien stuff. And then it's been out for a minute, so if you haven't read it, my bad. But the spoiler is that it's a twist on a Van Helsing story. And instead of Dracula being a vampire, Dracula's lineage is more called Neverlings. They're aliens that have been, sporadically coming. And then there's a whole backstory for that. But that one's one that we could see potentially becoming something. One Last Job is our other one. That's a spy thriller. And spy thrillers are starting to become, they're starting to come back up. They had lulled for a long time, but we're starting to see more and more of them now. So that's another one that we hope might pick up for something. And if it doesn't, I'm fine.
Oh, wow. Well, we're very excited to see what's going to happen and what's coming up for you in the future. Like, I really like Tilt, and so I'm excited for more. But I want to ask you, what keeps you going? Like, with being creative, just in life, like, what keeps you going in this game of life and creating?
I try not to, when I get asked this, I try not to get too cliche. As far as life in general, faith is a huge element of who I am and who I've always been. And that is something that I've been able to keep myself grounded on. I've had the times in my past that I've been heady or high-minded about stuff. And then you realize that the reality is empathy goes a lot farther than hatred does. And so now I try to do anything that I can do to help people's mental state. So for me, I have a blog that I put out weekly. Well, I have a Substack, but one of the articles that I put every week is a creator's mental health, just something relating to creators' mental health as an article. And I've made that every single one of them, for as long as I can possibly write them, will be free for everybody to read, regardless if you're subscribed to that Substack or not. And it's because I think it's vital to talk about not just mental health, but on the creative side, because if you're creative, you're putting yourself out there more than the normal person. You're putting a piece of your heart. For me, I'm putting the huge chunks of time in my heart and things that I think about that are explored through these different stories out there. And you never know how they'll get received. And for some people, if they get received wrong, it's detrimental. And I've had moments in my past where I've lost people that are very, very close to me for reasons that I will always question for the rest of my life. And that's where that realization about empathy came from. So what keeps me going is knowing that I want to be, this is going to be the most cliche thing I'll say, but we're named Catalyst for a reason. The word catalyst means it is a substance that undergoes chemical change or that can spark chemical change in something else without itself undergoing any massive change. So realizing who you are at the core, but trying to inspire others to be better. And that's why our mantra is do better, be better. We just want to see people level up in their careers and the things that bring them joy, because it's not like I get to do this full time. This is something that I do when I'm not having to work and not having to parent and do the husbandly duties and things like that. It's more about having that time set aside that I can create and hopefully spark something in somebody, because that's what made me become a creator, was somebody sparked something in me.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And where can we find that blog?
Yeah, so that blog is aarondowen.substack.com, and it has its own little section that's called Battle Brain, and Battle Brain is all the creators' mental health stuff. And as of this week, they'll start getting posted every Wednesday.
Nice. Thank you. We'll definitely be sharing those.
Yeah, we're definitely going to check that out. But we want to thank you for joining us today at the E-Line Podcast and giving us some insight on what you do, what you have coming up. Till, we're very excited. The podcast, everything that you have going on. We wish you the best, and we just want to say keep creating to you and everyone. And
Absolutely. Definitely.
yeah, so yep, I'm Mark Rose. This is Ellie, and then we have the amazing Mr. Aaron Bowen, and we want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. It means a lot to be able to talk to new people. So
Yeah, right.
I very appreciate it. We really appreciate it.
You're always joined to come back. You're always welcome to come back.
Absolutely. Every time you have something new, come back and talk to us.
Hey, anytime you need me, I'm around.
Awesome.
All right.
We'll be around and we'll be seeing what you have going on.
All right. I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a lovely night as well.
Right.
I'm going to go play Dungeons and Dragons for the first time and see what happens.
Ooh, good luck. It might end 3-4 hours later, but good luck.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye.